Good evening. This is the news tonight, your daily roundup of all that has happened across India and the world. I'm Ishan Russell, and tonight our focus is on the Censor board, which was thrown into a tizzy with the resignation of its chairman, citing coercion and corruption. What's the story behind this? We'll talk about a little later in the bulletin. Also, we'll be talking about the economic reforms push that both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister made to captains of industry today. What did they say? We'll tell you over the next half hour. But first, the headlines we're tracking right now. We can overcome, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the investor community, announces new reform drive along with Finance Minister Arun Jaitley to ensure ease of doing business in India. Oil companies slash petrol and diesel prices as government hikes excise duty. Prices reduced for the 9th time in 6 months after global slump in oil prices. Former AAP leader Shazia Ilmi joins the BJP a day after Kiran Bedi's induction. While Ilmi won't contest, Kiran Bedi is ready to contest against Kejriwal if asked. The Censor Board chief quits, citing government interference in clearing film Messenger of God that was barred by the panel. And 2 terrorists gunned down by Belgian police amid a series of anti-terror raids across the country. High alert sounded across Belgium. Our top story tonight, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed India's political and business elite today, where he promised that his government will ensure the maximum bang for their bucks. Delivering the keynote address at the Economic Times Business Summit, he said his government was committed to ushering in a new economic dawn for the country.
You will see India as a country of opportunities, unmatched across the world. I assure you that your inputs shall receive my government's highest attention. We have to repair the damage that has happened. Restoring growth momentum will be an uphill task. It will take hard work, sustained commitment, and strong administrative action. But we can overcome.
Right, and also speaking at the occasion, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley assured the investor community that the government will do everything possible to ensure an environment to make business easy in India. He said the government will not resort to any, addressing the economic summit, he said the government is committed to having a non-adversarial tax regime.
We are concerned with the easy decision-making process which eases the doing of business in India. I'd hate to see during the tenure of our government a situation where somebody takes a license for a telephone operation and ultimately finds that his entire investment has been confiscated because there was some corruption in the allocation system. So whether it's spectrum, whether it is coal, whether it is other mineral, we are laying down the benchmark that there will be no discretions involved.
And reacting to the objections of the Congress on taking the ordinance route, Jaitley said the government is trying to introduce the concept of competitive federalism, whereby every state government has the choice to take the route it prefers for development.
There are many competitive economies which are relatively slowing down. And if we are able to improve upon our growth rates, our revenues, in the next 1 or 2 years, which I am quite certain they would, I hope this year will be better than the last year. And the next year and 2 will certainly be much better.
All right, moving on now. Slump in global oil prices has once again brought down petrol and diesel prices today. The oil companies have slashed prices of both petrol and diesel by more than 2 rupees. They had yesterday skipped revision in fuel prices despite international rates plunging to its lowest in nearly 6 years. This is the 9th reduction in fuel prices in the last 6 months. The announcement came after the government decided to raise excise duty on petrol and diesel today. This is the second hike in excise duty in a fortnight. However, retail pumps are unlikely to be affected by this hike. It is aimed at raising additional revenue during the 3 months of the current fiscal. The government is looking to take advantage of the slump in global oil prices to shore up revenue without stoking inflation. Right, some political news now, and the Delhi BJP has added another former associate of Arvind Kejriwal into the party fold just ahead of the Delhi Assembly polls. Former Aam Aadmi Party leader Rajya is the second prominent name to the list of new joinees a day after Kiran Bedi's induction. Kiran Bedi is likely to be named the BJP's face for the polls as she expressed her intention to contest against her former friend Kejriwal.
It's Shazia Ilmi a day after Kiran Bedi. The BJP in Delhi has inducted 2 former associates of Aam Aadmi Party convener Arvind Kejriwal, one from his days of Lokpal agitation and the other who contested the Lok Sabha election for Aam Aadmi Party last year. One was felicitated by the other at a formal function on Friday. After joining the party, Ilmi said she will not contest in the Delhi Assembly polls next month but will campaign for BJP against her former party.
I really pledge allegiance to the new blueprint of Bharatiya Janata Party, which stands for development and governance. मुझे लगता है अराजकता की वो राजनीति, नकारात्मक वो राजनीति से हमें हटना चाहिए.
According to reports, Kiran Bedi is likely to be the face of BJP in this poll. She herself expressed her keenness to contest against her former aide Arvind Kejriwal.
मैं चुनाव कहीं से भी लड़ने को तैयार हूँ. मेरी दिल्ली सारी दिल्ली है.
जो हमारी पार्टी का जो कार्य प्रणाली है, जो कार्य पद्धति है, उसमें पार्टी का पार्लियामेंट्री बोर्ड इस प्रकार के निर्णय लेता है. तो जब कभी पार्लियामेंट्री बोर्ड के समक्ष ऐसा प्रश्न आएगा तब उसमें निर्णय लिया जाएगा. अभी मुख्यमंत्री के पद के बारे में कोई निर्णय पार्टी ने अभी तक नहीं लिया.
The Aam Aadmi Party seemed unperturbed by Kiran Bedi and Shazia Ilmi's moves. They've raised questions why BJP could not find a face among its existing leadership for these polls.
बीजेपी के अंदर नेतृत्व का और नेताओं का इतना जबरदस्त अकाल पड़ गया है कि अब उनको केजरीवाल के साथियों की जरूरत पड़ रही है.
The BJP is yet to decide the names of the candidates for the upcoming polls. The party's parliamentary board is likely to release the list after a meeting on 19th of January. With inputs from Shyam Sundar and Anu Diwan, Bureau Report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, our focus story for tonight, amid reports that the controversial film Messenger of God is slated for a release on Sunday, Censor Board Chief Leela Sampson and other board member Ira Bhaskar announced that they were resigning from their posts. Both expressed displeasure at the state of affairs with the statutory body. The government categorically said that there was no truth to the charges.
The Censor Board thrown up in a tizzy over the clearance of the film Messenger of God. Chairperson Leela Sampson said she was resigning after alleging interference, coercion and even corruption of panel members and officers of the Censor Board. Another board member, Ira Bhaskar, said she would also follow suit.
नहीं, कोई दबाव नहीं है और मेरा रेजिग्नेशन लेटर है वो रात को ही जाएगा. लेकिन ये डिसीजन हमने पहले ही ले लिया था कि हम ट्राई तो कर रहे हैं, लेकिन अगर हमारी आवाज़ कोई नहीं सुनता है और अगर बोर्ड का कोई फ़र्क नहीं पड़ता है तो जब तक चेयरपर्सन है हम लोग हैं और जब नहीं रहेंगी तो फिर हम लोग नहीं रहेंगे. बिकॉज हम ऐसे काफ़ी सारे मुद्दे थे जो हमने पहले उठाए थे पिछले साल.
The government refuted the charges and said Sampson should back her allegations with proof.
ये एक गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी गाइडलाइंस के हिसाब से है और इसमें किसी ने कोई इंटरफेरेंस या कोअर्शन नहीं करा. और अगर जो चेयरपर्सन ऐसा समझती हैं तो सरकार के सामने वो पेश करें कोई चिट्ठी या कोई SMS जहां पर उनको किसी पर दबाव डाला जा रहा है.
The film features Dera Sacha Sauda chief Gurmeet Ram Rahim Singh in the lead role. The Censor Board initially objected to the Dera head's alleged portrayal of himself as God and sent the film to the Film Certification Appellate Tribunal. The tribunal cleared it, prompting Sampson to quit. The government maintained that due process was followed in allowing the film.
पिछली फिल्म का जब चर्चा हुई थी तब भी हमने सेंसर बोर्ड की इज्जत करी थी. उसी रिस्पेक्ट से हमने उनके निर्णय को स्वीकार करा था और उसी प्रक्रिया के अंदर फाइनल जो कॉल होती है वो FCAT की होती है, एपलेट ट्राइब्यूनल की. और जो अभी जो फिल्म जिसकी चर्चा चल रही है, अगर वो FCAT द्वारा जो भी उस पर निर्णय लिया जाएगा तो वो सभी को स्वीकारित होना चाहिए.
But the row in the field of culture soon enough spilled over to the political arena as well.
She should have resigned on the very first day. I mean, she was an appointee of the previous government because her ideological inclination suited the previous government. When a new government comes which is totally different ideology, I think people should, on their own, to maintain their self-respect, should resign. I'm not talking about her ability. She is now considered a person with some ability.
Leela Samson's resignation is a contempt of the censor board's rule, and it's a very normal routine. It's a normal rule. When the censor board sends the film to tribunal, it's the right of the tribunal to take on it whether they want to release the film or not. And tribunal has found there is nothing wrong in the film and has released the film.
Many Sikh groups had earlier objected to the film on grounds that it glorified an individual who had police cases against him.
How can we show somebody who is accused of rape, who is accused of molestation, murder, castration as a hero? And I think it should be banned, and the government of India should rethink. Baba Ram Rahim says that he cannot go to the courts because it's a security problem. But today he is holding a press conference.
The Congress alleged that the controversy was yet another instance of the NDA government's interference.
See, whether it is DRDO chief or whether it is now Leela Samson, many of the important people in important positions are not allowed to do their job. And everything is controlled from the PMO.
The film triggered protest in parts of Punjab and Haryana by both the Shiromani Akali Dal and INLD supporters. 60 political workers were detained. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
To help us understand what's really happening with the censor board and this particular movie, we are joined by Denzel O'Connell. He's the editor of BollywoodPataka.com and a familiar face on television for all of us. So, Denzel, thanks very much for coming in. Now, what's the issue? I mean, is it just about the messenger of God, or is there a larger problem with the censor board that made its chief quit today?
Well, to take a pun on the messenger of God issue, I think the message is from the powers on the top. But that apart, I'd say that the censor board today, I think like your Prasar Bharati head honcho said a few days ago, that the ASI needs to be revamped because it maybe has lost its tenor. So with the censor board, has it lost its tenor? Are we looking at a board that really doesn't have the teeth? Because even if it does give an A certificate or U certificate for any movie, at the end of the day, if there's a protest or something happens and then everything gets changed around. So do we need to be looking at revamping the institution itself? That's the important thing.
All right, but as far as this institution itself is concerned, I mean, it's not just the censor board anymore. It's not the film certification board. And they really, I mean, it's gone are the days when a lot would be cut out of movies. Now a lot can fly. So in this sense, and we're talking in terms of the context of the freedom of expression and that entire debate that is raging on across the world. So Denzel, in that how relevant is a censor board or a film certification board right now?
Oh, in 1731, there was a freedom of expression. In 2015, there will be a freedom of expression. The freedom of expression is never going to change. The fact of the matter is that the times have changed. And is something like the censor board keeping up with times? I'm just hypothetically saying that today, if the Baba were to take the MSG movie, I don't think he's in it for money. I think he's in it for publicity. If he were to just take it out and put it onto the internet tomorrow morning, one, nobody would be able to stop him. Two, he'd have the kind of publicity he wants because he's already got that publicity courtesy the censor board and Leela Samson and everything that's happened right now. And at the end of the day, he'd get his 50, 80, 100 million likes. What more does he want? He could do that very easily. So, is there a need, one, for a censor board? Two, is there a need for a censor board in the route that it is today? That is what we need to be looking at. And the fact of the matter is, this is of course one instance. For instance, Leela Samson, she apparently was asked to stay on. And now she says, okay, I want to quit because everything that's happening here is wrong.
But she's also alleging coercion and corruption. So in that sense, these are serious charges as far as, as far as the censor board is concerned. I mean, what do you make of these charges? Have you heard? I mean, you've been covering the movie side of the business for a long time. So is this a charge often repeated as far as the censor board is concerned?
Coercion and corruption. any kind of influence that is brought, I'd say until it is proven, it is not there. Now, in the corridors of the censor board for a very long time now, there's been the whole thing about how there are people within the board that get movies through and all that kind of thing. But that's a lot of hearsay until it is really proven, as it was proven a while ago. Until that is proven, I'd say that is just hearsay. As far as she's concerned, I'm sure she has her reasons for what she's doing. But the fact of the matter is she was in the censor board for long enough. And during her tenure too, there were certain movies that may not have gone through. For instance, I'll just take an example of a recent movie, PK. I've seen that movie, and I'm from a different faith altogether, but the fact of the matter is that I'm sure that some sensibilities or religious sensibilities would have been affected by that movie. So what do we have to say there? How did that get through? And why is this not getting through? So are there double standards here?
Right.
I think yes, there are.
All right, so a lot of clarification needs to perhaps coming from the censor board chairman on why she quit, and also the government, of course, saying that it has nothing to do with as far as the allegations of coercion are concerned. But Denzel, thanks very much for coming in and explaining to us the role of the censor board in today's India. Thanks very much for that perspective. All right, moving on now. India has in fact voiced strong disapproval of our European Parliament resolution that asks India to allow the return of 2 Italian Marines accused of killing 2 fishermen. The External Affairs Ministry criticized the resolution as not well advised, as the matter was in the courts and was being discussed bilaterally between India and Italy. In the joint resolution approved by a show of hands, European member nations expressed sadness at the tragic death of the 2 Indian fishermen, but also grave concerns about the detention of the Marines. The 2 Italian Marines were arrested in India on murder charges for killing the 2 Indian fishermen off the coast of Kerala. One of them was given a leave extension earlier this week.
The case involving the 2 Italian Marines having killed 2 Indian fishermen is sub judice and is being discussed between India and Italy. The Supreme Court of India, in its ruling on 14th January, has granted 3 months extension to the Italian Marine Massimiliano Latorre for his stay in Italy on health grounds. And the other Marine, Salvatore Girone, is staying in the Italian embassy in New Delhi. Under these circumstances, the European Parliament would have been well advised not to adopt the resolution.
Well, time for a very quick break right now, but coming up on the other side, protests against the Charlie Hebdo turned violent in Pakistan. More on that after the break. Welcome back, here with the news tonight. Well, now a fictional account of Congress Party President Sonia Gandhi's life by Spanish author Javier Moro hit the stands in India today. Reacting to the development, the Congress said it reserved the right to take legal action against the book if it finds the contents objectionable. The book reportedly traces Sonia Gandhi's journey from childhood to her entry into politics. The author claims he has sourced information from close friends and colleagues. The book's English version was not allowed to be released in India in 2010.
Anybody can publish anything subject to legal recourse. He must not have chosen to publish it for his own commercial, personal reasons.
Now, even 2 days after Makar Sankranti, which marks the end of the winters and beginning of spring in India, cold wave conditions continue unabated in the northern part. Mercury levels dipped several degrees below the season's normal in many cities, affecting normal life. Fog continues to disrupt air and rail traffic in the entire region.
Dense fog and cold wave conditions continued in Delhi on Friday, affecting normal life. Dozens of trains were affected, running several hours behind schedule, while several flights had to be rescheduled due to thick fog early morning.
बहुत तकलीफ है, ठंडी इतनी हो रही है, इधर-उधर से लकड़ी लेके आ रहे हैं, ताप रहे हैं किसी तरीके से.
Foggy conditions prevailed in neighbouring Punjab and Haryana as well, disrupting rail, road and air traffic. Poor visibility due to the thick fog cover disrupted movement of traffic in Rajasthan too. Several districts in Uttar Pradesh ordered closure of all the schools up to class 8 till the 21st of January. The Met Department has forecast foggy conditions at many places in North India for at least 2 more days. The hill states of Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal are the worst hit by cold, reeling under sub-zero conditions.
जो पिछले दिनों में वेस्टर्न डिस्टर्बेंस थी उसकी वजह से जो ऊपर के क्षेत्रों में स्नोफॉल हुई और बाकी लगभग सभी स्थानों में बारिश रिकॉर्ड की गई, जिसकी वजह से जो तापमान है उसमें काफी गिरावट आई.
In Kashmir, the night temperature fell below the freezing point after a 4-day respite owing to a cloud cover. Kargil was the coldest place in the state with a low of -11 degrees Celsius, down by nearly 1 degree. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
For more national news and nationwide. Security has been stepped up at the Mumbai airport after a terror threat message was found scribbled in one of the washrooms. The message claims of a terror strike on Republic Day this month. While the chances of the messages being hoaxes, security agencies are not taking the threats lightly, especially in view of the high alert across the country on Republic Day. West Bengal Transport Minister Madan Mitra was remanded to 14 days judicial custody in connection with the Sharada chit fund scam. A court today rejected his bail plea and sent him to custody till the 30th of January. Meanwhile, a petition was filed in the Calcutta High Court seeking removal of Madan Mitra from his post. The Delhi Police Commissioner B.S. Basi has hinted that Congress MP Shashi Tharoor will be questioned soon by the Special Investigation Team which is probing the death case of his wife Sunanda Pushkar. Basi also denied reports that the viscera samples were spoiled, saying that a definite decision on where to send them will be taken in a few days. The Supreme Court today stayed the trial of Tehelka founder-editor Tarun Tejpal by 3 weeks in a sexual assault case. The Apex Court gave Tejpal the time to collect all the necessary documents and asked him to refrain from delaying the trial on any ground in future. Tejpal was charge-sheeted for allegedly raping and sexually harassing a junior colleague in November 2013. Now, protest demonstrations have cropped up in Pakistan against French satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo. One of them turned violent in Karachi today. A photojournalist was shot at and 3 others were injured in a protest outside the French consulate in Karachi. The journalist is admitted at the Jinnah hospital and is believed to be out of danger. Some 200 supporters of the Jamaat-e-Islami clashed with the police outside the consulate building. Police fired tear gas and bullets to stop the crowd marching towards the building. The protesters observed what they called Black Day, burning flags against cartoons published in the paper. The rallies come a day after Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif led Parliament in condemning the cartoons in Charlie Hebdo. Lawmakers in Islamabad unanimously adopted a resolution condemning the publication.
This House strongly condemns printing and reprinting of blasphemy caricatures of the Holy Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, by the French journal, and also take serious note of the continued trend of their reproduction in numerous other newspapers and magazines of other Western capitals.
I think the ayes have it and unanimously the resolution is adopted.
अभी असेंबली में जहां तमाम मुसलमान मेंबरान ने अपने ख्यालात का इज़हार किया, अक़लियत की तरफ से भी भरपूर उसकी मज़म्मत की गई है और ये पूरे पाकिस्तान के अवाम की तरफ से मज़म्मत है। ये जो करारदाद है इंशाअल्लाह ये हम हर उस फोरम तक पहुँचाएंगे। स्पीकर साहब के ज़रिए इंशाअल्लाह ये तमाम जो एम्बेसीज हैं उनको भी भेजी जाएगी और यूएनओ को भेजी जाएगी, ओआईसी को भेजी जाएगी और पाकिस्तान के जितने फॉरेन मिशन हैं उनको ये भेजी जाएगी।
A week after the terror mayhem in France, there are signals of neighbouring Belgium being the next target. High alert has been sounded after a major anti-terror raid in which 2 suspected Islamist militants were killed. Anti-terror raids are being conducted across the country.
For residents of the lazy Verviers town of eastern Belgium, it was a night straight out of the movies. These pictures were taken by a neighbour through his window. A police raid on a terrorist hideout in a house in the area, a gun battle and muzzle flashes. 2 men were killed, a 3rd man was arrested. No other injuries reported.
J'ai entendu des fusillades, des explosions et enfin ça devient grave quoi. Ici à Verviers, il n'y a jamais rien eu de tel et ça fait un peu peur. Quand je vais dire moi j'ai des enfants, ma femme devait aller aujourd'hui à la FGTB, je lui ai dit reste à la maison, je lui ne sors pas parce que...
Police recovered 4 Kalashnikov rifles, bomb-making equipment and police clothing from the spot, indications of bigger terror plans. The men had reportedly returned from Syria and were planning attacks on police targets. Similar raids were carried out across the country. A nationwide security alert has been raised to level 3 on a scale of 4.
Les perquisitions se sont effectuées dans le cadre d'une enquête portant sur une cellule opérationnelle composée de personnes dont certaines revenaient de Syrie. L'enquête a permis de déterminer que ce groupe était sur le point de commettre des attentats terroristes d'envergure.
Earlier on Thursday, 2 suspected Islamists were arrested in a Brussels suburb. Belgian officials say more than 300 Belgian nationals had gone to Syria and Iraq to fight with Islamic groups there, perhaps a reason for the attacks. Protection and security are the big focus areas right now.
Nous n'avons pas connaissance de menaces concrètes et spécifiques. Toutefois, compte tenu de la situation, nous pouvons considérer qu'il est utile d'élever le niveau de prudence et de vigilance. Ça signifie concrètement que des mesures complémentaires de protection et de sécurité seront prises.
The terror alert in Belgium comes a week after attacks in neighbouring France that killed 17 people. Belgian officials say no weapon links with the killings have been established for now, but fears persist that the Belgium target may have been inspired by the killings in France. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And terror raids have also been reported in Berlin and Germany, raising fears of terrorists looking to target European nations. More than 200 German police officers raided suspected Islamist cells in and around Berlin early today. Police say they've arrested an alleged leader of a group planning to carry out an attack in Syria. They said the arrested man is a 41-year-old man of Turkish origin and is suspected of leading an Islamist extremist group made up of Turkish and Russian nationals from Chechnya and Dagestan. Police said there is no indication that the group was preparing attacks inside Germany. Now, embattled former Sri Lankan President Mahinda Rajapaksa today agreed to hand over the reins of his party to the country's new leader, Maithripala Sirisena. Rajapaksa loyalists had initially refused to back Sirisena and threatened to split the party. But Rajapaksa finally gave in to the demands of some party members after his shocking defeat in the presidential elections. He handed over the party chairmanship to Sirisena, saying he does not want to see his party divided. It remains to be seen how the other parties in Sirisena's coalition react to this development. Sirisena broke away from Rajapaksa's SLFP in mid-November last year and went on to topple him in the January 8th polls. Well, time now for all the sports action in Sports Beat. Australia defeated England by 3 wickets in the first match of the One-Day International Tri-Series in Sydney. Batting first, England scored 234 with the help of a century by captain Ian Morgan. Australia comfortably chased the target with 10 overs remaining, winning the match with a bonus point. Australian opener David Warner was the just man of the match for his 127 runs. India will face Australia in the second match on the 18th of January. Defending champion Japan edged Iraq 1-0 to claim the top spot in Group D in the Asia Cup. Midfielder Honda scored the only goal of the match through a penalty. In another group match, Jordan midfielder Dardor scored 4 goals and set up another as Jordan kept their hopes alive in the tournament with a 5-1 win over Palestine. Novak Djokovic's chances of winning a 5th Australian Open have been boosted by a tying draw in the opening week. World number 1 Djokovic will face a qualifier in the first round and will avoid the top 10 seeds until at least the quarterfinals. Women's top seed Serena Williams will kick off her campaign against 106th ranked Belgian opponent. Well, that's news tonight. Good night.